This is your policy, which you will not defend because, frankly, it's indefensible. Why are you, Mr. Baker, why are you allowing biological men to play in women's sports? The only person who doesn't seem to bear any responsibility in this is you and the NCAA, who are the governing body.
Why don't you go to Amazon and buy a spine online and take a stand?
All right, y'all. Good morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you're tuning in. I'm grateful to have you here, and we got a doozy today because two of my favorite senators, and many of y'all's as well, I'm sure, they're back in the building. God bless them. Missouri's Josh Hawley and Louisiana's John Kennedy. And if you've ever seen these two in action, you already know what's up. And today's no different because you're about to watch the NCAA president get absolutely grilled for failing to defend women's sports, for continuing to allow delusional fake women, aka biological men, giving them this free pass to be creeps and predators, while the real girls are forced to sit on the sidelines and stop competing in the sports that they love and have trained their entire lives for. They're told that they have to find some other non-existent safe space or go to another restroom. Yeah, complete insanity, I know, and I can't believe that this lunacy is still going on, but we're darn sure going to keep exposing it for what it is. Evil. But I'll give the rest of my 2 cents on the back end after the video finishes rolling. Let's get it poppin'.
The NCAA exists in part to promote fair competition in collegiate sports, does it not? Could you speak in the mic for me?
Yes.
Okay. A transgender woman is a biological male. Is that correct?
Yes.
And a biological male is always going to have a physical and a physiological advantage competing in a collegiate sport against a biological female. Isn't that true?
There's not a lot of research on it, but it's certainly debatable.
You think it's debatable?
I think it's debatable.
You don't think? Think that a biological male has an advantage every time competing against a biological female? Is that your testimony?
No, I think defined the way you defined it, yes, I would agree with you.
So you agree with me?
Yes.
Okay. So why does the NCAA, why do you, your job is to promote fairness in collegiate sports. Why do you support allowing transgender women who are biological males to compete against non-transgender biological females?
Over the course of the past 2 years, 5 federal court cases involving this question. Let me finish. 5 federal judges have all sided with participation as the standard. This is a very...
So you're saying you don't have a choice?
I'm saying that under the current dynamic, there is not clarity on this issue legally.
Well, why don't you exhibit leadership and demonstrate leadership and provide clarity? If you agree with me,
well, first of all,
that the purpose of the NCAA is to promote fair competition, and if you agree with me that in every single instance, a biological male is going to have an unfair advantage over a biological female, then why don't you just say, look, in America you can be whomever you want to be, but in terms of fair competition in a collegiate sport, transgender women who are biological males are not going to be allowed to compete against non-transgender women who are biological female. Boom, done. Why don't you go to Amazon and buy a spine online and take a stand?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Baker, if I could just start with you. I confess I didn't understand your answer to Senator Kennedy's question about the safety of women in the sports of the NCAA overseas. Did you say the federal law requires the NCAA to permit biological men to play in women's sports?
No, I said there have been 5 cases in federal court in the past 18 months. And
okay, because I thought you told him that
federal judges sided with participation.
The reason the NCAA couldn't take a position on this, in fact, you have taken a position on it, You're affirmatively permitting biological men and women's sports. But you said to him it's because of federal law. There's no federal law that requires it, right? The relevant federal law is Title IX, is it not? You're familiar with Title IX.
If guidance on this issue from Title IX or guidance with respect to discrimination law would be
Title
important.
IX is already the law. Title IX says
federal judges have
it's
ruled
20
on
U.S.C. Section 1681A. By the way, let's just dispense with that canard. No federal court has ordered the NCAA to include biological men and women's sports, right? There's not a single case that has ordered the NCAA to do so, correct?
That's pretty much what they decided in the San
No, don't
Jose
say pretty
case.
much. We're talking about the law here.
Yes,
and
I know.
And you actively dissembled to Senator Kennedy just a second ago. It's not true that the NCAA has been ordered by any court, number one. It's not true that federal law requires you to include biological males. In fact, Title IX explicitly says, no person in the United States shall on the basis of sex be denied the benefits of any educational program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. You are in court at this moment arguing that Title IX doesn't apply to the NCAA, which is astounding to me given the amount of money, federal money, the NCAA gets. But let me just ask you this.
Senator,
a total of 5 teams, 5 women's volleyball teams, Wyoming, Southern Utah, Utah State, Nevada, and Boise State all had to forfeit 7 games in their conference play, NCAA conference play this past year. Women's teams, because a biological male, under your rules, was playing on a rival's team. How is that not denying them the benefits of the sport? Why is this fair to women?
And when that issue went to federal court, the judge sided with participation.
No, the NCAA did not go to court.
No,
that is not true.
The federal judge made the decision with respect to the issue you just raised.
Your rules have not been tried in federal court. And your rules explicitly permit biological males in women's sports. And I am asking you, why is that fair to the women? All of these women on these teams had to forfeit games and therefore a chance to compete in the championship because of your rules. And I want to know, why is that protective of women? That's my question.
So far, the federal government on the court side has issued decisions several times.
No, I'm not asking you about the
year.
courts. I know what the courts have done. Not one of them
that's
has
their
ordered the
interpretation of
NCAA.
federal law.
This is your policy, which you will not defend because, frankly, it's indefensible. Why are you, Mr. Baker, why are you allowing biological men to play in women's sports?
Because we believe that's consistent with federal policy.
So we're right back to your testimony is you believe you're compelled to do it by federal law. You would change it otherwise?
We believe our policy. I said in my opening comments to Senator Kennedy, the clarity on this issue at the federal level would be very helpful.
Oh, that is such a cop-out. In other words, somebody else please do it for us. Keep sending us the money. We'll go to court and argue that Title IX doesn't even apply to us.
We do not take a dime in federal money, not a dime.
Is that why you're arguing Title IX doesn't apply to you?
Yes, part of it, yes.
You honestly think you shouldn't be subject to Title IX?
We don't believe we currently are. Federal court has
amazing.
Federal court has affirmed that on a
Absolutely
number of
amazing.
circumstances.
You have a pending lawsuit right now from female athletes who are suing you because you allow biological men not only in their sports but also in their locker rooms. Why do you do that, by the way? Why do your guidelines allow biological men into women's locker rooms without the women's consent? Without the women's foreknowledge? Why do you do that?
That's not what our guidelines say.
They do say that. I've got them right here. Your guidelines say that transgender student athletes should be able to use the locker room, shower, and toilet facilities in accordance with their gender identity.
And
here they are, right here.
And then everybody else should have an opportunity to use other facilities if they wish to do so.
Okay, so the burden's on the women. So if the women then want to move to a different facility, in other words, if they want to abandon their own locker room, you're saying that they should have to do that? So in other words, it's their problem?
No, we put a significant amount of emphasis on what the locals' plans are, and we make sure that everybody.
What does that mean? The locals' plans?
Whoever it is that's hosting the event.
You have guidelines that instruct them what the best practices are, and your guidelines say that biological men can go in and use the women's locker rooms if they want to. What the women want has nothing to do with it. They're not mentioned in here at all. Correct? Correct. It's right here. You just reaffirmed them in May of this year. I've got them. I'm reading them. I've got them off your website.
I believe our guidelines give people optionality with respect to how they choose to use their facilities. And many,
What does that even
many,
mean? Optionality. What it says is transgender student athletes will be able to use the locker room, shower, and toilet in accordance with their gender identity. That means men will be able to use the women's locker rooms. And as Riley Gaines and others have testified before this committee, that means if a man, a biological man, wants to use their locker room, they just have to accept it. Or else the women have to go somewhere else. They've got to go find an alternative. Why is that fair?
we told the local folks who've hosted our tournaments they need to create accommodations for the people who are playing.
You know, so it's the feds on the one hand, it's the locals on the other hand. The only person who doesn't seem to bear any responsibility in this is you and the NCAA, who are the governing body. And your testimony here today is you're not even subject to Title IX. Mr. Baker, I can't tell you how disappointed this makes me, but not just disappointed, frankly, infuriated for the student athletes who are suffering because of your policies, and you won't even defend them. You won't even take responsibility. It's outrageous. It's totally outrageous.
Expired.
Even Democrat Senator of Illinois, Dick Durbin, chimed in, someone who's been openly pro-LGBTQIA+, or alphabet abomination soup, as I like to call him, but even he seemed dumbfounded that an extremely small minority of trans athletes are getting this preferential treatment over biological females.
How many athletes are there in the United States in NCAA schools?
510,000.
How many transgender athletes are you aware of?
Less than 10.
Less than 10
Yep.
out of 510,000?
Yep.
I think it's pretty obvious what's going on here, y'all. Anybody who's familiar with the Bible, you can clearly see that folks nowadays in these times, they're calling evil good and good evil. They've exchanged the truth, the one and only unwavering one, the same yesterday, today, and forever. They've exchanged that truth for lies, and everything is all cattywampus to how it's supposed to be, and it's looking a whole lot like Romans 1, ain't it? All of my Christian brothers and sisters, you know exactly where I'm going with this. Remember Paul talking about God rejecting the wicked and giving the unrighteous over to a reprobate mind? He was talking to the church in Rome when he said this, and God allowed them to live in their filthy sin, which only leads to death. When you wage that, that's the only result that can happen. And that same thing applies to all of those that condone the nastiness, by the way. So people like old Charlie boy here and this secular culture, they got a painful ending coming their way. And the only way to escape that punishment of damnation and hell is through the gospel. They need to stop bending the knee to wokeness and humble themselves in submission to the Lord. Then they'll be renewed by the Holy Spirit that's in us when you have faith in Jesus Christ. You'll be a new creation with discernment, and you'll have eternal salvation to look forward to. Doesn't that sound a whole lot better than the lake of fire, hell? You know, that's the only solution to this fallen world's depravity. Amen. And I know most of you watching, you agree with what I'm saying. This isn't anything new. It's not world renowned. I'm not saying anything that's unfamiliar. You understand what should be universal common sense. But to everyone else who still doesn't get it, please quit allowing these mentally ill, freaky dudes to abuse women in the name of inclusion. That's not sports. That's not being inclusive. You're an arrogant criminal that deserves to be thrown in prison. Out here stacking up bank accounts and collecting these consolation prizes as though you earned it when you didn't, all at the expense of defenseless girls. These people are sick and twisted, and we got to put an end to this nonsense once and for all. Can we please do that? Because nobody's feelings can dictate reality or alter their identity. Fellas, I don't care how much sugar you got in your tank or effeminate you are or how masculine a woman might act. Like our genetic DNA codes are whatever God created them as and always will be. No matter how you feel about it, you could call yourself a they, them, thus, whatever you want under the sun, it's not going to change. And anyone that tries to deny that fact, or someone that hates real women like Charlie clearly does, they need to get fired like yesterday, for real. That's number one. Very simple, or at least it should be. Maybe Trump can step in there. I don't know the logistics behind it. Who can fire who's the head of the NCAA president? Y'all let me know in the comments section. But outside of that, if it's not already straightforward in the rules, and clearly there's some discrepancies about what it actually says, what it applies to, who it applies to, all of that, I think a federal law needs to be established that applies to the NCAA, high school, all levels of competitive sports. You need to make it to where if someone's born with a bat and balls, you know what's between their legs that you can clearly identify when they pop out of the womb at birth, C-section, no C-section, you can spot what it is. And if you have a bat and balls, you need to compete against guys. No other way around it. And it don't matter if you've chopped things off, swapped them out, just playing dress up. up, whatever it is, we need to hold the line and not budge. They can go form their own little trans league if that's what they want to do, but you ain't getting away with touching and peeping on our women and girls anymore. Ladies, refuse to compete until all this junk is resolved. And I know it stinks that you even have to resort to that when you shouldn't have to, but it's a whole lot better than the alternative of facing off against Debo and getting destroyed like we keep seeing happen, like that boxing match in the Olympics. It just ridiculous, just out of touch with reality. I feel like I'm living in a whole nother dimension on a lot of days. I know I'm on the right side of the grass. I know Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior. I know where I'm going when this life or here is over. I know where my soul is going to be ascending to. And my goodness, y'all, I know we win in the end as Christians, but there's a whole lot of people out here lost and stranded on the wide path of destruction, on a one-way ticket to hell if they don't reverse course. And I want them to reverse course, but again, they could have a reprobate mind. I don't know what God's will is. I know it's going to be done on earth as it is in heaven. I know I'm ranting as well, and I know I'm fired up. So I don't want to say something that'll get me taken off this platform. Unfortunately, you got to be kind of strategic with how you use your free speech rights these days. Either way, I will always speak out on any issue like this, especially when it's relevant in these times. It's always relevant to defend men and women, real ones, and just to uphold the truth, to enhance righteousness and try to minimize sin and eliminate sin as much as we possibly can as human beings. But that was a mouthful, I know, but I'd love to hear what y'all think about all this. So drop a comment below and let's keep the conversation rolling. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe if you're not already, ring that notification bell so you get notified anytime I post a new video. If you like what I'm doing over here and you want to show a little extra love and support, make sure you go check out our website down below in the description section. That way you can get all the awesome shirts and hoodies you see me wearing in every single video, as well as some pretty sweet tumblers and cups. They're all made by my smoking hot wife with tons of different designs to choose from. I like my clothes baggy in the winter, so you got a little extra room to move and groove. That's just what feels gooder than chicken to me. But we got all different sizes ranging from itty bitty extra small to big and hefty 5X, a bunch of colors. I guarantee we got something that you'll like, or at least a great gift for someone that you love. Outside of that, you can always show support by buying me a coffee, joining the Patreon community. You can become a member of the Gibson family here on YouTube by tapping that join button. All those links are always down below in the description section. By no means do you have to do any of that. Just showing up and watching my freckle face on your screens for a few minutes, I am greatly appreciative. I love y'all, and I cannot thank you enough for rocking with me throughout the years. I think I posted my first video on this channel 7-8 years ago, and you have literally changed my life, my family's life for the better. I just can't put into context how grateful I am for y'all. And I know we get into some tangents and some long rants sometimes, and I get fired up. That's how I like it, and that's how y'all seem to like it as well. But just thank you from the bottom of my heart. But until next time, I'll be praying for you. Godspeed. I'm gone.